The United States and France have truly different histories, traditions, and perspectives that shape their culture. For many centuries, there has been a misunderstanding between France and the United States due to these factors. To fully understand French and American culture, it is essential that one makes a genuine attempt to be a cultural relativist. Oftentimes, people in general are ethnocentric and do not have an appreciation of how other cultures function. French and American cultures differ in many ways as one would expect. The United States and France are separated by thousands of miles, which may explain some cultural differences. For several years, this meant they had to travel months by boat just to meet each other. Americans have different views on life. For example, Americans generally eat larger portions of food and have to travel further just to buy groceries. Paris is the most visited city in the world. Shouldn't our relationship be stronger? The problem is that generally a single visit doesn't allow one to understand all the ideas of a culture. Oftentimes our brief observations are turned into concrete ideas. One cannot truly learn to appreciate a culture with brief encounters. Even using a restroom in France is very different from the United States. Takes a while to get accustomed to. In France, one has to pay to use a public restroom, while in America it is free. America as a whole views France and French cultures both a positive and a negative for various reasons. What do most people think of when they hear of the French? What comes to my mind and many others is fashion, cuisine, and arrogance. Although these categories are part of French culture, there are other facets to French culture. I can remember watching the U.S. swim team versus the French swim team. The French were heavily favored and the Americans were able to pull off an upset. What is ironic is the French were talking trash heavily leading up to the swim match. After the match, the French were good sportsmen and respected the American swim team. In recent years, there has been an increased interest in French culture. This is most likely due to better communication and access to other cultures via the internet and television. One does not even have to leave his or her house to gain access to wealth of French culture. Fine wine and cheese are now available to order via the internet, allowing Americans to sample some of the beauty of French culture. According to many experts, the French have also been more sympathetic towards Americans since the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001. This may be because they have faced similar attacks throughout history. Great hostility still exists between the United States and France today, though, particularly in world affairs. The United States is truly against terrorism, believes France has supported such groups. Another interesting topic that arises is job preferences. The fast food chain McDonald's is frowned upon by American workers. Most of my friends who work there make minimum wage and cannot stand the work. In France, they have a different view. McDonald's is seen as a successful company, and regardless of wage, many French people are eager to be an employee of McDonald's. A fair amount of French young people now watch American sports, speak English, and have some desire to visit the United States. America has been a world power for several years, which allows its culture to be viewed more critically. It does allow for it to gain popularity among other nations. People are beginning to appreciate one another's culture, which was not always the case. Through increased communication, the process of globalization has been taking place, allowing both French and Americans to gain a broader worldview. It is evident that great controversy exists between the French and Americans. Both parties have despised each other for many centuries because of cultural differences. It's honestly difficult for two countries with very different histories to reach a common understanding. France has had disputes with the British who colonized the United States for years. This makes the process even more difficult. In recent years, both countries have adopted or shared culture from one another. I believe that both nations and cultures may never fully understand one another. As history advances, it could be a reality.